I've now purchased a total of 4 Steinhart watches, and this one makes it 2 in my present collection. In fact, I once owned a 42mm version of this. I loved that watch but found it a little bit too large for my puny wrists. Since selling it, I've kept my eye open for a smaller version, but for some strange reason they all cost a lot more. Now this is a special edition version, sold by a company called Olko, that's O-L-K-O. To be honest, I've never made up my mind if this is a sports watch or a dive watch, so I'm going to consider it a sports diver. Now Steinhart are a German company, but their watches are produced in Switzerland. They're famed for making high quality timepieces at affordable prices. And welcome to my unpaid and unsponsored review of the Steinhart Ocean Vintage GMT 39mm. Let's have a look at the dimensions according to my calipers. Well, it's got a case of 39mm and a lug width of 20mm. The lug to lug's 47mm and the depth's 12.5mm. Once this has been adjusted to fit my 17cm wrist, it comes in at about 143 grams. I would say the watch wears a little bit larger than the dimensions indicate. It's probably more like a 40. And there we are, the normal Steinhart packaging. Quite generic, but at the same time quite premium. And for those of you interested, this is my watch of the day. It's a Christopher Ward C65 Sapphire. It's a 40mm watch with a Sellita SW200 in it. And what a lovely watch it is too. The crown is about 6mm, it's signed, it screws down, it operates the watch perfectly, and the engagement is actually silky smooth. Unscrew it and you have your winding position. Pull it out once and turn it one way for the GMT hand and the other for the date. Needless to say, the final position is for changing the time. Now this watch has an impressive depth rating of 300 metres. Inside the watch is either an ETA 2893-2 or a Sellita SW330. They're both GMT movements, needless to say. It's almost certainly the Sellita, as the Swatch Group are reluctant to sell their ETA movements to third parties. That suits me fine because I actually prefer the hand winding in the Sellita, and this one winds very nicely. It's the Elaborate grade, which means it's regulated in 3 different positions. It's a Swiss 4Hz high beat movement that ticks away at 28,800 beats per hour. It hacks, it hand winds, and it's got a power reserve of 38 hours. Now it's known for its accuracy and its reliability. Let's have a look to see what it's doing on the time grapher, shall we? There we are, cracking set of figures. It says +4 seconds a day, a good amplitude despite the fact the watch isn't fully round, and a very good beat error. I can actually assure you after a day's wear and a night's rest, this gained 3 seconds over a 24-hour period. The sapphire crystal is flat and it's got 3 layers of AR coating, as well as the Cyclops of course. Surprisingly, my Vintage Explorer has got a dome sapphire crystal, but it is 1mm deeper than this. Now although a type of dive watch, it's got a fixed stainless steel bezel. The case is simple but well made. Both the bezel and the tops of the lugs are finely brushed, whilst the sides are polished. Now the screw down back has got a Steinhart logo on it and some basic information engraved around the sides. Unfortunately it doesn't have drilled lugs. Now the case is a little bit flat, but because it isn't a big watch, this doesn't create a problem unless you've got particularly small wrists. The dial is what drew me to this watch in the first place. It's relatively simple but complex at the same time. All the indices are painted. There are 3 defined markers for the 12, 6 and 9 positions, whilst there is a date window at the 3 o'clock which is covered by that Cyclops I mentioned. In between all the indexes is what I would describe as half indexes, which is for the GMT hand, which only travels around the watch once a day. This model has the white indices, but if you were to buy it from Lume, it actually comes with Photina indexes. Under the 12 is the Steinhart logo and printed underneath that is Ocean GMT. Whilst above the 6 o'clock it simply reads 300 metres automatic. Now both the indices and the pencil hands are filled with BGW9 Lume. It isn't the heaviest application I've ever seen, but it's more than decent and it's got a reasonable staying power. Let's have a look at that Lume. I've always been a fan of the Steinhart oyster bracelet as they're very comfortable. It's quite chunky and it balances out the weight of the watch very well. The bracelet is brushed on the top and it's polished around the sides. There are no sharp edges, there are half links and the links are actually attached via screw pins. The solid female end link fits perfectly to the case and the articulation is very good. Now it tapers down from 20mm to 16mm, then back to up to 18mm for the clasp. Now this clasp is a little bit ordinary but perfectly functional. It's safe and it's comfortable. It is both polished and brushed and it bears the Steinhart crest. It's a friction fit with 4 micro adjusts and a flip lock. Price and value for money. After import duty and postage, expect to pay about £550 once delivered to your door in the UK. Of course, if you live in a country where you don't get hammered by the taxman, it's going to cost you less than that. For what it's worth, I picked up a brand new one from an eBay seller based in Northern Ireland and I got it at a very good price. The question is £550 good value for money? I'll let you make up your own minds, but I believe a Swiss-made watch produced to a very good standard with an elaborate grade Swiss movement for that sort of price is indeed excellent. As expected, there were no QC issues when this watch arrived, but is it perfect? Of course it's not. I only have 2 complaints. The first is that flat case shape. Like I said earlier, it isn't a great issue on a watch of this size, but if you've got a smaller wrist than me, you might find it difficult to get a good fit. My other complaint, albeit this is just personal taste, is that Cyclops. I've never been a fan of them, and I doubt I ever will be. As you would expect, the watch has many strong points. Firstly, that wonderful and interesting dial, and secondly, that terrific Swiss GMT high beat movement. The finish is excellent, and like I said earlier, I've always been a fan of that comfortable and substantial bracelet. Let's not pretend otherwise. This watch takes inspiration from a very famous watch once worn by Steve McQueen back in the 1970s. Whilst not a lover of Homage watches, I don't have an issue with a watch that closely resembles a timepiece made over 50 years ago that is no longer available. For me, that 39mm is so much more wearable than the 42mm version I once owned. Now this is like having an old friend back in the family home. That brings me to the end of this review, so if you've enjoyed it, press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave your comments below and enjoy the rest of your day.